People gather before the palace in numbers to witness the execution. Even Lombardis are not spared for corruption. A girl in the crowd wriggles in anger. She calls them idiots who walked into the fire. She kept reinstating time and time again that a ruffian like the first prince should never become the crown prince. The history of Lombardy tracks way back in time that it cannot only be rendered as the history of the kingdom. They have attained huge wealth and wars, and they are distinct in art and culture throughout the world. However, when Rulac Lombardi assumed as the head of the family, the Royal Gate Edict was issued to limit the activities of the royal family. He then established a scholarship allowing outstanding commons to join shoulders with nobles, which enabled every talented individual to attain key positions in the empire. This forced previous emperor to take back the royal edict, but how could he spend all the family riches in 2 years? She smashes her fist in anger. She is angry over the fall of the kingdom because it was a Lombardi too who died in a car accident in Korea. She was reincarnated as a baby. She was happy that she can now live a good life, but did not turn out as desired. Her father, Galan Lombardi, was the third son of the current head. Her mother was a commoner who died during labor and was never recognized as his official fiancée. Though Florentia received the Lombardi name, but her position was mere of an illegitimate child. She was gradually forgotten by the family when her father passed before her 11th birthday. Conversely, she began doing work for her family and her desperation became her driving force. Her intelligence earned her the position of manager of Lombardy house finances at the age of 18 and later became her grandfather's business assistant at the age of 19. Amidst her skills, it was not easy for her to cater to the responsibilities of her incompetent and ruffian uncles. Her grandfather loved her, but he regretted that he should have left the family in her hands and recognized Florentia as a noble Lombardi. Till his death, he always. His words stimulated Florentia to do her best for the Lombardi family, and she relentlessly kept serving the family. But soon after his grandfather's death, her uncle threw her out. He cannot endure an illegitimate child anymore. She pleaded to serve the family, but he shut the door in her face without letting her exercise her inheritance rights. But 2 years later, those scoundrels have spent every Lombardi possession in gambling. You should have trusted the second prince. A regret runs through her mind. The second prince, Perez Brivicu Dorelli, was 100-folds better than the first prince. He was also disapproved of being born to a maid, but he proved himself a genius at the Imperial Academy. He had unprecedented political power, too, and turned the entire aristocracy to his side. Shedding these guilt-ridden thoughts, she heads back home, cursing the stupidity of the Lombardi family who did all wrong to the second prince. However, the second prince is now the crown prince. The emperor has miserably collapsed, and the selfish nobles have been dealt well. She has overdrunk, and now she finds it hard to maintain herself, and suddenly she hears a horse neigh behind. She is hit by a carriage, and her consciousness slowly drifts away. Florentia opens her eyes in a library, and the man sitting next to her is her father. Tia is shocked. Moments ago, she was hit by a carriage, and now she's in the library. Unable to comprehend the situation, Florentia decides to stop by her room immediately. She recognizes that the shell's numbering is in that old pattern before she changed them and ascertains if the guest room present near the library. Staring at herself in the mirror, Tia is shaken. She's so tiny and her body feels so weak all of a sudden. She remembers an injury scar she sustained on her 9th birthday, but the scar is not there, which means she is even younger than 8. Has she traveled back in time? She asks herself. She glances at the tall, graceful trees gifted by the first emperor upon finishing the construction of the Lombardy manor. The trees were later cut by her uncle Vise when he became the head of this family. Her father was not the strongest, but rather the wisest of his brothers, and even the Imperial Academy benefited from his wisdom. She wishes had he not died so early, things could have been better for them. But wait, a thought strikes her that her father died before her 11th birthday, suffering from a disease whose cure was invented years after his death. Traveling back in time, Tia has a chance to save him now. She returned to the past with all the previous knowledge, and Florentia is confident that by utilizing her knowledge, she will save him this time. But first, she needs to stop Vise from becoming the family head. She remembers in her previous life, Vise's wife was the cousin of Queen Lavinia Anginas, therefore Vise had to support the first prince as the next crown prince. Although he was not perceptive enough to realize that the first prince would not fit the role of crown prince, remembering her grandfather's last words, she thinks about having a go this time, but she decides not to repeat the mistakes against the second prince, who will be the crown prince in future. Using the knowledge of her coming 20 years, Florentia decides to build connections with the second prince. She aspires to become the matriarch of this family, but for doing that, she will first need to gain her grandfather's trust. Librarian Braschel informs Florentia that her father, Lord Galahad, has left for the head summons office. She remembers that she joined the library after Braschel fell sick and was previously a famous professor at the Imperial Academy. She requests to borrow a book, The People of South. Did her father ask for it? The librarian questions and she negates. She wants it for herself, carrying the book. She looks at her grandfather's room. It's been a while since she has been around this room. She waits outside for her father and glances at the book she wanted to read the most since she was kicked out. Despite her long desire to read this book, she could not get her hands on it until she died. Hey, half-blood, she turns to the voice and two young boys approach her. It's Belisek and Astiliou. One has been the famous playboy of the family and the other blew the family's money in gambling. She bursts in laughing looking at them. They are tormented by her laughing at them. Previously, she was scared of them at this age and they both used to bully her, but she does not want them to repeat the same. She addresses Belisek and asks him about her age. Confused, Belisek replies that she is 7 years old. She scolds them for acting immature and stops calling her half-blooded. Her unexpected response fills them with anger, causing Belisek to grit his teeth in frustration. Without thinking, he impulsively rushes forward and strikes Ferentia, causing her to fall to the ground. Their satisfaction comes from a misguided belief that Ferentia, being a half-blooded individual, somehow deserves this humiliation. She's a mere commoner to them. I told you to stop calling me half-blooded. Ferentia roars in anger and slaps Belisek. He falls on the ground and begins crying. Astiliou stares in disbelief. Her eyes turn green in anger. She rises the book high and smacks Belisek to teach him a lesson. Belisek is scared to death and vehemently cries, but she has not finished. The flashback of the miseries she bore because of them further ignites her anger, and she continues to beat him. Hearing the noise outside the office, their parents separate them. Looks like Belisek broke something in this intense fight. Her uncle screams at Ferentia to apologize to Belisek. Grandfather shouts at them to immediately stop this fight. He asks the only witness of the fight, Astiliou, about the fight, who entirely blames Ferentia for the violence and refers to his brother as truly innocent. Flared with their audacity to spin lies about her, the only person she can trust now is her grandfather, who finds it hard to believe in Astiliou's accusations that Ferentia beat his brother for no reason. Ferentia has always hated you, Belisek shouts while hiding behind his father, who rebuffs him for interfering in others' conversation and contemptible manners. Grandfather hates it when he is interrupted in the middle of a conversation. Grandfather turns to scared Ferentia and asks her what happened. In the past, she always hesitated the eye contact and always ran off like a crybaby. She punches her foot in affirmation to turn things this time. I did nothing wrong. Her calm reply agonizes Lord V's, but her grandfather lets her continue. She explains that she was patiently waiting for her father outside the room when they both approach her, mocking and calling her half-blood, and when she told them to stop, they began hitting her. Who hit you? Lombardi asks. She points at Belisek, and he also called her low-born and to leave this manor. Utilizing this opportunity, he begins narrating how she's been treated by both of them and how rotten these two are. The primary reason for hitting them was being called not a Lombardi. She understands that she is not pure-blooded and her mother was not granted the Lombardi name, but despite all, she is a Lombardi acknowledged by Lombardi himself. After she began to see operations of the family in her past life, she realized that being half-blooded never defined her entire existence. The Lombardi bloodline suited her far more appropriately than morons like Belisek and Astiliou, who only flaunted the family name. Lombardi is a proud grandfather because his granddaughter fought for her family's name rather than her personal humiliation. He heard that Ferentia is known as a crybaby, but interestingly, she is not crying at all. She states that she'll cry in her room once everything is said. Bursts in laughing at her witness. Galahad is worried about her injuries and wants to take her to her room before departing. Ferentia grabs the book she borrowed. Is pleasant with her interest in reading. Ferentia apologizes for using the book harshly. She believes it is important to acknowledge the mistakes. Belisek and V's stare at them in disbelief as Tia and Galahad get going. Enraged, V's asks his father if he is going to let Tia go so easily. She must be punished for beating the eldest son of the family. Tulek is infuriated at Vezes for arguing, who quickly sits like a sloth and begins explaining himself. Calls off the matter and orders everyone to leave. Galahad addresses V's for getting sore on children's play. Galahad calls the doctors. Ferentia has sustained a deep wound and the doctor fears that it may leave a scar behind. It's the same place where she injured herself on her 8th birthday. The doctor asks her if she is feeling pain anywhere else. Ferentia points at her swollen hand, which was injured when V shoved her. Luckily, her bones have been safe. Dr. O'Malley leaves for the laboratory, allowing Galahad privacy for a private chat with his daughter. He turns to Tia, his eyes filled with concern for her, and questions her the reason for not telling him about the rascals. She says they are warned to beat her again if she tells this to anyone. He is furious at his nephews. She believes she gave them a real lesson today and they won't dare trouble her again. Galahad has tolerated their scornful behavior until now, but he had enough. Ferentia ascertains that she will tell him if they ever bother her again. Galen is a proud father. He hugs Ferentia. Galahad notices that she has begun to call him father instead of dad. She has almost forgotten that she used to call him dad in her childhood. Pleased to be around her father after years, she aspires to live happily with him for a long time. There is a very deep meaning of these words which Mr. Galahad can't understand, and neither does she want him to understand. She will leave no stone unturned to save him this time. She promises herself to be the savior of her father and the Lombardi family. Her first goal is to be acknowledged by Rulac Lombardi. Despite how awful V's is, he is still Rulac Lombardi's eldest son, and the family looks up to him as the implicit heir. Moreover, he enjoys thorough support from her uncle Laurels, and her father is contented to the library only. Compared to her uncle, she has several obstacles, like she is a daughter or third prince, her blood, her gender, and her age. Her projections are interrupted when her father inquires if she is enjoying the book, and Tia affirms. In her past life, Rulac Lombardi could not distribute the responsibilities between his sons and fell sick. For working all alone in his later age, Tia must convince him of her capabilities before he falls sick. She is an illegitimate child, and this will surely hurt her even if she takes his place at such a crucial time. Second prince's support will be the key for her. Therefore, she needs to make good terms with him and make sure that he becomes the crown prince. It will be beneficial not just for the family but her too. If she succeeds, she can alter the forthcoming adverse future. Florentia reminds herself that it was the rainy season of the present year when Para's mother was severely ill. She could not even call the medics due to Empress and died. In her past life, Paris took her mother's revenge by imprisoning the Empress when she was ailing. She wishes to see him, but Lombardi children are forbidden to wander outside until they turn 11. There is a knock at the door. Sir Cleveland requests Lord Galahad's permission to enter. Galahad asks if there is some urgent message to deliver, but Cleveland denies it. Cleveland is her grandfather's right hand who will soon be handling the Lombardi businesses, and Cleveland is here for Florentia. Sir Cleveland is confident that there has been a misunderstanding. A young girl like Florentia cannot borrow this book, which is written in professional texts, and it is only meant for researchers. He believes she picked it only for the attractive cover. Mr. Rulac is convinced with the explanation. Firenia's mother was a wayfarer, and she did not possess any noticeable trait other than her beauty. Therefore, he never paid any attention to Florentia. But when he witnessed today, realized she is worthy of inheriting his bloodline. But to Cleveland, she is no different than an ordinary child. He introduces himself to Florentia as the teacher in charge of the Lombardi family. Cleveland is at her residence to ascertain Florentia's intelligence with his specifically designed tests, but if she fails the tests, she will not be allowed to be part of his lessons in the future, even if Mr. Rulac insists. Firenita, in response, calls his name in such perfect form that Cleveland cannot help himself staring at her with such impressive decorum. Cleveland instructs the lessons which all the Lombardi kids have to go through. It might seem like ordinary tutoring, but is the first step of a strict evaluation process for them. Only the children who bear a certain level of competence are allowed to continue the lessons regardless of their age, and the difference in their skills begins appearing with lessons. Moreover, there is no particular age to finish the lessons, so if a child is abstained from the lessons, it means he failed to qualify. Furthermore, their evaluations are put before the head of the family, Rulac Lombardi, who monitors every word and every action of his children's. Previously, she was permitted to take the lessons at 9, but the earliness this time raises her eyebrows. Maybe it's her chance to impress them. Cleveland begins his questions, which she has to simply answer. The first question is about the book. She thinks her grandfather paid attention to the book, and she answers that she has been reading that book since yesterday. Cleveland then asks her to tell him about the book, the author, and the first chapter, and Florentia precisely replies to all questions. She senses Cleveland has inferenced the book as a mere toy for her. She understands this book is even tedious for most adults. She asks if he is here for the book. Cleveland curiously lets her keep the book. Maybe she is telling the truth and she read the book. He attempts to convince himself. He shocks when Florentia corrects him that Rapilli, the author of this book, is a female and her full name is Avain Rapilli. He borrows to correct himself. Cleveland deluded himself that only a man can publish such well-crafted research. He repents for his stereotypical approach to Florentia. Cleveland ends his questions and invites Florentia to his lectures, starting from the 6th day of the week, and cautions her regarding the difficulty of the lessons in the beginning since she is joining in the middle of lectures. Galahad is delighted with his daughter's intelligence, and he vehemently hugs Florentia. Cleveland wanted to ditch this position, but Florentia's potential has thrilled him. He aspires to continue teaching for a while. Lord Galahad surprises Florentia with a sudden picnic idea. He plans to enjoy the sunny day with by Florentia's favorite cakes and reading books. They'll stop by Dr. O'Malley momentarily, but Florentia understands he is baiting her for a doctor's visit. However, she delightedly agrees. Dr. O'Malley is busy preparing some medicines when they stop by him. Dr. O'Malley introduces them to her apprentice Estera. Tia insists only Estera should examine her. Dr. O'Malley is convinced that Estera is very talented and he himself will also supervise the treatment. Ferencia projects talented Estera's importance in developing the vaccine for her father in the future. Estera carefully examines Ferencia's injured hand. Ferencia normalizes Estera with a friendly conversation. Ferencia asks her about the skills she's learning here and expresses her desire to be examined by her again. The swelling on Ferencia's hand has disappeared. Estera opines to change the medicine and Dira instructs her to bring the Sakos extract. Ferencia is petrified by the bitter-looking medicine. Gallahan baits her to drink it quickly so that she can enjoy her favorite cookies, and somehow she drinks the entire bottle. Ferencia offers cookies to Dr. O'Malley and Estera as gratitude for curing her. Estera is impressed by the kind nature. Seeing Estera in the office was an expected gain for her, though she will have to visit her often to develop good terms with her. A cart stops by them while Gallahan carries Ferencia to the garden, her eyes widened by the crest. In the office, Rulak asks Clelvian about Ferencia's test. In spite of being stingy in the evaluations, Clelvian acknowledges her intelligence, but something catches his eye. Clelvian walked around Lord Gallahan's residence, but surprisingly none of the servants had any idea about her intelligence. Furthermore, Lord Gallahan's reaction implicated that he was also not expecting her daughter to outperform. Clelvian believes Ferencia has kept her abilities until now, but this may only be Clelvian's speculations. Rulak is disappointed with Gallahan for not unearthing her abilities, but Clelvian is confident that it is still not late. Rulak decides to supervise her performance and orders Clelvian to directly report to him after the class. Members of Dulac Company enter the office.
Hey guys, if you like the video, please share it, like, and subscribe to my channel, and I'll get to work on the next part of this video. Thank you. Goodbye.